You are not as in control as you think. Every moment of panic you've ever felt was not a choice, yet you pretend it was. You believe calm is something earned or learned. But most of your reactions betray you before awareness arrives. The mind whispers fears into your body long before the world even acts. You feel tension rising, yet you tell yourself it's normal, that you're managing it, that you're fine. But in truth, every hesitation, every tight jaw, every racing heartbeat is the brain rehearsing old patterns, reacting faster than your reasoning can intervene. You look at others handling stress and wonder why it seems effortless for them, while your body trembles under invisible pressure, unseen forces shaping your reactions. And here is the unsettling part. Those forces are not outside, not random, but inside. They are rehearsed, conditioned, familiar. Your mind craves the drama, the spike of adrenaline, and you obey without realizing it. So, when will you actually be free of it? When will calm not feel like a struggle, but a natural state? But to understand this, we need to look deeper. You tell yourself that staying calm is a matter of effort, of willpower, of consciously choosing to breathe slowly and think clearly. It feels logical, even attainable. Most people assume control is external, that pressure comes from the world, not from patterns ingrained deep in the nervous system. They chase techniques to suppress panic, unaware it is already wired. You repeat mantras, rehearse scenarios, imagine outcomes, believing these rehearsals create mastery. Yet every heartbeat, every subtle tightening of muscles, betrays that the brain has already decided your response. In moments of stress, you are certain you can steer your reactions, but the truth is, the autopilot of anxiety is faster than thought. You feel caught, yet still claim control. The illusion is comforting. It lets you believe you are rational, that calmness is just around the corner if you try harder. Resistance feels like responsibility, discipline masquerading as mastery. Your mind clings to control, even while control slips, convincing you that awareness alone is the solution. It validates the struggle, making tension feel purposeful, necessary, even protective. And yet, something essential is missing. The belief that effort equals calm is incomplete, leaving your mind restless, anticipating danger that may never arrive, stuck in loops of reaction. And this is where most people misunderstand what's really happening. If this is already making sense to you, it means you're starting to notice patterns most people never see. Subscribe and let's keep exploring how the mind really works. Now, this is where things start to get uncomfortable. The first unsettling truth is that calmness is rarely natural under pressure. Your body reacts before your mind decides, triggering reflexes older than reason. You may notice small betrayals, a tightening chest, a shallow breath, a fleeting panic. These are not failures, but evidence that the brain learned faster than your awareness. Every reaction has a history. It is shaped by patterns drilled into your nervous system through repetition, emotional intensity, and survival instincts long before thought could intervene. You feel frustration when control seems just out of reach. Yet that frustration itself reinforces the cycle, giving your brain yet another pattern to rely on. Most people imagine calm as something added techniques, breathing exercises, willpower, but it is actually something that emerges when learned responses stop dominating perception. And yet, the mind hides this from awareness. You may try to analyze, rationalize, or fight the response, only to find that understanding alone rarely alters the behavior. To truly see why calm seems fleeting, you have to examine the conditioning beneath every heartbeat, every twitch, every subtle reaction that feels inevitable. But to understand this, we need to look deeper. Your brain is a survival machine, constantly scanning, predicting, and responding to threats before thought can intervene. What feels like stress is often an echo of evolution. In childhood, every intense emotional experience leaves a mark. The nervous system stores reactions like a map, mapping how to respond to future pressure based on past events, social cues. Criticism, failure, uncertainty all create pathways in the brain that anticipate panic. Rehearsing anxiety long before a real threat arrives, each repetition strengthens these neural circuits. Even small experiences of pressure repeated over time train the brain to overreact. A racing pulse, a tense stomach, a shallow breath, they are learned responses, rehearsed unconsciously. Becoming default behaviors, the brain rewards these reactions. Rapid decision-making under stress feels efficient even when it is unnecessary. It tells the body, you survived, you adapted, you were prepared. This is why control feels elusive. The more you resist, the more ingrained the pattern becomes. The autopilot is not your enemy. It is simply following training that once served a purpose. And as your nervous system seeks familiarity, it will cling to old reactions, providing an emotional payoff that feels like safety, even when it traps you in tension. And this is where most people misunderstand what's really happening. Every spike of stress, every flush of anxiety, carries a hidden reward. Your brain interprets tension as engagement, as attention, as proof that you are alive and responsive. You may think you dislike the rush, but it reinforces identity. The mind finds satisfaction in vigilance, in rehearsing responses, in feeling needed in the drama of pressure. Even panic has comfort. It is familiar, predictable, and it signals importance. You feel alive in these moments because your brain equates intensity with meaning, weaving emotion into identity. This payoff is subtle. It whispers that survival lies in readiness, that calmness is unnatural, and that your nervous system is doing exactly what it should. The brain secretly rewards repetition. Every moment of tension reinforces the circuitry that makes pressure automatic, creating a sense of control while paradoxically ensuring that calm remains elusive. You might notice resentment toward those who handle stress effortlessly, but that resentment is part of the hidden payoff. It validates the struggle, ensuring the pattern continues. And yet, this connection between stress and satisfaction explains why logic alone cannot shift behavior. The brain's reward system clings to the familiar, even when harmful. And this is where things become uncomfortable. Your reactions under pressure are no longer just behaviors. They have become part of who you believe yourself to be. You see yourself as someone who struggles to stay calm. Even when you intellectually know better, identity overrides reason. Effort feels foreign. Resistance feels exhausting. And the self you've built around tension reinforces the patterns you seek to escape. Social mirrors reinforce the trap. Others' expectations, past criticism, and your own narrative create a feedback loop that makes calmness seem unnatural, distant, almost impossible to claim. The brain's autopilot is no longer simply reactive. It is now a statement of identity. Every racing heartbeat becomes proof of who you are rather than what is happening. Attempts to reason or force control fail because the mind interprets resistance as a threat to identity. Calm becomes a betrayal of the self it has carefully constructed. Even moments of peace feel uneasy. The self built on stress and reaction watches, doubts, and subtly sabotages, making calm fleeting and difficult to trust. Understanding the identity trap reframes the problem. Calmness is not about willpower or discipline, but about rewriting the relationship between self and reaction. And this is where a new perspective begins to emerge. What if calmness is not a skill to acquire, but a perspective to inhabit? What if the moments of tension are not enemies, but mirrors reflecting unexamined assumptions? Pressure does not exist outside you. It is interpreted, filtered, and colored by expectation, by identity, by the nervous system rehearsing old scripts. You are not reacting to reality, only to patterns. The sensation of panic is not a flaw, It is the mind signaling familiarity. Calm is not the absence of stress, but the absence of attachment to the story your mind tells. You have been living in the illusion that control is external, that others or circumstances dictate emotional state, yet awareness alone shifts the terrain. Observing a reaction quietly can dissolve its weight. In this light, the autopilot is no longer an enemy, it becomes a teacher, revealing the architecture of your own responses, the neural pathways that have defined you for decades. You may notice subtle openings, tiny gaps where a reaction does not seize the mind entirely. These gaps are the foundation of calm, emerging not from effort, but from understanding. Shifting perspective does not happen with force. It unfolds slowly, quietly, as the mind recognizes that identity and reaction need not be synonymous. And this is where internal change begins. Awareness of tension is not intervention. It is observation. Simply noticing the surge of stress allows the nervous system to release habitual grips it has held unconsciously. Breathing does not need to be controlled. Posture does not need to be corrected. Calmness arises when the mind steps back and ceases identifying with the reaction it observes. Time itself changes. Moments that once felt urgent, suffocating, or critical are experienced differently. They are no longer threats to identity but opportunities to witness response without judgment. The quiet shift is subtle. It does not announce itself. It is a soft unraveling of automatic tension, a gentle loosening of the mind's habitual insistence that pressure equals panic. You may notice small pauses, milliseconds where decision is not dictated by old patterns. These are the spaces where a calm lives, where reaction can be delayed, observed, and understood. The mind slowly begins to sense freedom in the act of observing, recognizing that control is not about force, but about presence, about ceasing to identify with the patterns themselves. This awareness does not demand anything, it simply unfolds, creating a stillness that is not absence, but inclusion of all that arises, without surrendering to it. And this is where reflection leads to revelation. Look closely at your reflection in moments of stress, not the face you see in the mirror, but the mind's reflection, the constant commentary that interprets every sensation as threat or failure. You may notice that tension is habitual, rehearsed over years, a loop that has silently defined your perception of reality. It is familiar, comfortable, even when uncomfortable. Observe the impulse to control, to correct, to anticipate. These impulses are not inherently yours, they are echoes of survival, repetitions of patterns learned before conscious thought could intervene. The moments that once felt unbearable reveal themselves as temporary, as experiences shaped more by perception than by circumstance. Stress does not own you. Your belief in its ownership does. There is silence in noticing, a pause between stimulus and reaction, between expectation and response, where the mind can simply witness, unjudged and pressured, unclaimed, and in that silence, identity begins to loosen. The self built on reaction observes itself with clarity, understanding that calm is not an achievement, but a state of being always available, yet rarely recognized. The final mirror does not provide answers. It reflects only what has always been there, waiting for awareness to notice it, to allow freedom without force. And in that awareness, everything changes quietly. Calmness is not the absence of pressure. It is the presence of observation, the mind's recognition that reaction is optional, not mandatory, and that identity need not be dictated by tension. You do not need to fight the patterns, correct the autopilot, or force serenity. The shift occurs when awareness replaces insistence, when observation dissolves the illusion of necessity. As you leave this reflection, consider how often you have surrendered to pressure unnecessarily, and how different life might feel if calmness was allowed, not earned. Curiosity is the doorway. Presence is the pathway. Observe, reflect, Notice and let the mind reveal what it has always known but has rarely shown. Watch, pause, return, and notice the difference quietly. Psychology of stress, emotional regulation. Staying calm under pressure, controlling reactions, mindfulness under stress, brain conditioning. Mental resilience, emotional self-control.